Okay, guys, we're back with another episode of Seth's Solo Side Quest. Of course, I'm Seth from the Lonely Stoners podcast. Solo episode again, not joined by Evan for this one. And going to go through a few topics. Going to talk about Raw on Netflix. Obviously, they had a huge debut. Was like a star-studded show, head to toe. They brought out all the stars for this one. There was a UFC card, Dern v Rebus 2. An Apex card, so I'm definitely not watching that. Obviously, there was a big win from Jacoby Smith, but we'll talk about that later on in the podcast. And yeah, we'll just go wherever Bleacher Report kind of takes us on this. I'll be going on Bleacher Report, reacting to some articles there. But let's get straight into it. Of course, yeah, like I said just now, we had the Dern v Rebus card, Dern v Rebus 2, an Apex card. So like I said, I'm not watching that. But I did hear about Jacoby Smith having a huge knockout win in his UFC debut. Of course, this is someone that came from the Dana White Contender Series and someone coming out of the Contender Series with a lot of hype. So Jacoby Smith, he's known for being a demon of a wrestler. So he's got a huge wrestling caliber. So I think he wrestled for, I want to say Oklahoma State, but I could be wrong. I've not got it in front of me now. I think he wrestled for Oklahoma State. So I've got serious wrestling pedigree. I'm really impressed in the Contender Series where he just really ragdolled his opponent. I think it was a catchweight, and the guy was a bigger guy that Jacoby Smith was fighting, and Jacoby Smith still ragdolled him. So coming into the UFC, obviously he got signed off that fight in the Contender Series. Coming into the UFC, a guy with a lot of hype. But that being said, he delivered a huge left hand and knocked the guy out and won in his UFC debut. So Jacoby Smith is someone that is someone that we definitely want to keep an eye on, because if he's able to develop that striking even further, along with that wrestling pedigree, he's going to be a problem. You know, guys who can wrestle and strike at a high level in MMA, you're always going to have some success and have some joy, because you can really kind of dictate where the fight takes place, which is a huge skill to have in MMA. So I'm definitely going to keep our eyes on Jacoby Smith. Hopefully he can stay active this year, have a couple more fights this year, and push his way into potentially being ranked or being just on the precipice of being at that rank, or being at the top 15. You know, that's where you want to be. Ultimately, you want to be as high ranked as possible and climb the rankings and get paid, bro. So eyes out for Jacoby Smith. But yeah, huge victory in his UFC debut. Other than that, I'm not really going to talk too much about that card because, like I said, I didn't watch it. I was interested in Jacoby Smith to see what happens there. Of course, we've got Mackenzie Dern, some nice eye candy, but I'm seeing that she won her fight, but I couldn't tell you the first thing about the fight. I said it was a submission win. Mackenzie Dunn's a grappler, so I guess that makes sense. Mackenzie Dunn's a fighter who her entire career has just shown like incredible amounts of inconsistency. I've seen her in fights look like she could be a, serious contender, and then the next fight she looks like she's never even trained before. That's really the story of Mackenzie Dern's career. She's bad, so they'll keep her around as long as she can have somewhat respectable wins, and this will be one of them. Winning in a fight night main event is, it's definitely an achievement. But if she can carry on winning fights like this, the UFC will keep her around because she's winning fights plus eye candy. So it's a win-win. But let's go over to WWE Raw, the first Raw on Netflix. Now, this was probably one of the best Raws that I've watched in a very, very long time. To be fair, they have been building themselves up for this, and they've done that through social media and then the recent weeks on TV announcing special guests, The Rock, John Cena was going to be on the show, CM Punk, etc. And then there were some guys that were surprise appearances, Undertaker, Hulk Hogan. But that overall, all those announcements and then them delivering on a great show that resulted in Raw receiving 4.9 million viewers globally on Netflix, which is an insane achievement. I mean, anyone that's able to get nearly 5 million people to sit down and watch a live TV show around the world, serious achievement. In 2025 as well, that's a serious achievement. particularly when last 2024 Raw's viewership only in the US, to be fair, only in the US was, I think it was around 1.2 million a week, right? But that being said, this near 5 million number from Netflix is a global number. I think it's estimated around 2.6 is from America, which again is more than double what they were doing regularly last year on TV. Particularly as well on Netflix, where it's not free to watch. You know, you need to have a Netflix subscription to watch this. So getting 4.9 million people on a subscription service, serious achievement. My only concern is, has WWE blown their load on this? Of course they have. You know, you can't have episodes of TV like that weekly. You can't have The Rock on every week. Can't have Hulk Hogan on every week. Can't have Undertaker on every week. At this point in John Cena's career, you can't have John Cena on every week. CM Punk, you're probably not going to have on every week. Roman Reigns, you're probably not going to have on. You know what I mean? There was a star-studded episode that you're going to struggle to replicate this week in, week out. Especially it's a long-term deal for Netflix. So no doubt that WWE can deliver though, because they've got a decent amount of stars at the moment. But I suppose as a company, as a wrestling company, you can never have too many stars. Really. You can never have too many stars. Of course, we had John Cena's promo. It didn't start off the show, but I'm going to talk about that first, because why not? John Cena had his promo where he kind of said that it's going to take a miracle for him to win a world championship. And then he said it's never going to happen. So he's never going to win the championship. And then he's like, well, it's WWE, so never say never, which is right, because in WWE you can never say never. That's the simple fact of it. You can never say never. Then he went on to say, you know, he could win the Royal Rumble and then headline WrestleMania. He could do that. And I hope he really does. For me, I want John Cena to go all of this year unbeaten, retire with the championship in 2026, clean slate. I don't know if WWE will do that. I don't know if John Cena himself would want to do that, because John Cena himself seems like the type of guy that would want to put the younger guy over. But he's been doing that for years now. The reality, if you look at John Cena's runs from the past 4-5 years, he's just been putting over young guys. He's not really been doing anything for himself, and I understand that because John Cena's got so much equity built in with the audience. He doesn't have to be out there winning week in and week out. Like that time of Cena's career has been and gone, but can come back for this final run. I would love to see Super Cena back again, to be honest. But the promo ended with John Cena saying that he's declaring himself to enter the Royal Rumble match, and he says he wants to win it. I want him to win it. I'd love to see like a final four of like, I don't know, Cena, Orton, Punk, and Roman Reigns. Off the top of my head, I'd love to see that as a final four for the Rumble, with maybe like Cena eliminating Orton to win the Rumble. I think that'd be amazing. Amazing way to start off 2025's premium live event run, resulting in Cena fighting for the world title. I mean, maybe he'd even be facing Orton for the title. I don't know. I don't know how they're gonna play it. Don't know how they're gonna book it. I've got ideas, but I don't work in WWE, so I'm not involved. But yeah, great promo from Cena, and then let's see what else was going on Raw. We had the Women's World Championship match, Rhea Ripley and Liv Morgan, a match that was a fine match. It was a good match, to be fair. It was a good match, but these two, they have good matches. You know, they have good matches. They've been wrestling each other for a while now. This storyline has been going on for a very long time, and I'm happy that they have. I'm happy that they've sort of wrapped it up now, because this whole storyline with the love triangle with Ripley, Morgan, and Dom, it's in my opinion, it's kind of, how can I say, ran its course, and I'm happy that Rhea's got the belt back and they can just move on now. The thing is, Dominic is such a good heel. It would be a shame to split him up from Liv, but whatever they want to do now, I'm not bothered. You know, this storyline with the Judgment Day and all that with Rhea, it's for me, I'm done with it at this point. I've seen it for years now. Judgment Day has been around for years. my interest in this entire storyline has really waned. But I suppose one of the biggest takeaways from this match was after Ripley won the title, she got joined by the Undertaker, which was again a huge appearance for Raw that I don't believe was announced prior to the event. So, seeing Undertaker come out on the bike, it was a really fun moment, and I'm sure it's one that Rhea's going to remember. It's definitely a moment that I'm going to remember for a while, because first Raw on Netflix, Undertaker comes out with the new Women's World Champion. What was definitely a good moment. What else do we have on Raw? CM Punk and Seth Rollins. Of course, these two, they're going to put on a good match. I think Seth, he's sort of in the moment where he could put on a good match with majority of wrestlers. And Punk, to be fair, this run is winning me over. He had some really bad matches in AEW, which I guess you could put down to ring rust, I guess. But he took, I don't know, I guess you could put it to ring rust. But he was working with, still very talented wrestlers there. Punk faced Hangman Page. I mean, there was probably some backstage stuff going on that probably didn't help the match. But these two are professionals, so I'm expecting them to still be able to put on a good match. The match itself in AEW, they were fine. But so many botches because Punk is... What we thought of Punk in AEW, he was old and really slow and was pretty much kind of done at a high level, but was just being pushed there because he's on a big contract, he's a big name, etc. But now this WWE run, he's kind of showing us the complete opposite, that Punk's really worth his weight in gold when used correctly. And this is something I've talked about on previous episodes, and me and Evan have definitely talked about on the podcast, where you need to know what CM Punk is at this point in his career and how to use him most effectively. And that's not by having him wrestle every week. That's by having him wrestle maybe a handful of times a year. Keep him fresh in people's minds. Let him rip guys apart on promos. He's able to do that. He's never been bad on the mic. He's a great promo cutter, because for the most part he's able to really deliver a sort of believability that very few wrestlers are able to do. Some are able to do it. There's a guy like LA Knight, even though their promos are not similar at all, Punk and LA Knight are really good at delivering these great promos. Drew McIntyre at times is able to deliver a great promo too. Seth Rollins not so much, in my opinion. I think it's probably to do with his cadence and his voice is just really just annoying. So I'm not a fan of Seth's promos, but yeah, I mean, he's up there, and he had a great match with CM Punk, and CM Punk goes over in that one. Punk defeated Seth Rollins. To be fair, the way they're building up Punk, I would be surprised. I don't think they're going to put the strap on him because he's not able to wrestle consistently enough. I think Punk's going to be okay with that in this point of his career. He's going to be put in these big storylines. I think WWE, they've put him in such a good position where you've got a bona fide main eventer in CM Punk, a guy who could headline any card that they have. He could headline a WrestleMania, could headline a SummerSlam, Survivor Series, Royal Rumble. He could headline any event they have, and he doesn't need to have the World Championship, because he's able in promos to get people to care and to get people to think that this is such a real and personal feud, like he did with Drew, like he's doing with Seth. He's able to really portray that, and when you're able to elicit that sort of emotion from the audience, you don't necessarily need a title to be on the line. It'd be nice, sure it would be, of course it would be, but you don't need that. So Punk's in a very unique position that he's worked hard to get himself in there, and it's taken a long time too. Punk's no rookie. It takes a long time for wrestlers to get to that sort of point where they're able to deliver these sort of promos and be trusted to be put in these sorts of positions. But Punk, like I said, Punk beat Rollins in a good match. Punk's got a nice resume since he's come back. Wins over Drew McIntyre, beat him in Hell in a Cell, now beat Seth Rollins on the first Raw on Netflix. He got some momentum behind him, and I imagine this Punk and Rollins storyline is still going to continue. I don't think it's going to be a one and done at all. So they'll probably feud for the next couple months. Maybe even going into WrestleMania wouldn't surprise me, but CM Punk's going to be looking at that world title soon. And he'd probably lose because, like I said, I don't think they'd put a world title on him at this point, but they're building up an interesting contender in CM Punk, so we'll see what happens with him there. Of course, we had The Rock come out as well. I'm doing it in a messed up order. I think Rock may have started the show. He acknowledges Cody Rhodes, of course. That was a fun moment, considering where they were, a year ago. Well, it was a fun moment, and The Rock is a guy who's able to deliver similar to Punk. I mean, better than Punk, of course, because Rock's a lot more charismatic, got a lot more presence, deliver amazing promos, and just have the crowd in the palm of his hands at every given moment of the promo, which super rare. There's no one like him, to be honest. No one can deliver a promo like The Rock, no matter who you are. So yeah, The Rock kicked off the show and was a great way to kick off the show. Great way to kick off this Netflix era. And we'll see what they've got in store for next week for Raw. Popped a huge rating this week. Let's see if they can continue this sort of momentum, or if we'll see a huge sort of fall off. Because I don't think they're probably not going to have Triple H, Rock, Undertaker, Hogan, Punk, Roman Reigns, Cena. They're probably not going to have them all in the second week. You couldn't. They could. Don't get twisted. They could. Of course they could. But then you're battling diminishing returns. That part of the reason why they popped such a big rating is because you never see all these guys on one show. If you started seeing these guys regularly on Raw every week, people get used to it. It's not as big of an attraction. And then ratings would drop off anyway. So, I do not envy the job that guys at WWE have to do. So, like I said, we'll see what happens with them there. And I guess we'll move on to something else. We'll move on to football. So, West Ham recently sacked their manager, Julian Lopetegui, and now hired Graham Potter. Now, for me, I personally really liked this appointment. I think, logically, to be honest, if you're asking me, they should have hired Graham Potter in the first place. If you're asking me, they should have hired him in the first place because Graham Potter, way better fit for West Ham than Lopetegui is. Considering you're going from Moyes, who, again, another one who you shouldn't have sacked, but you did. You sacked Moyes. Go from Moyes to Lopetegui. There's no sense of stylistic continuity with that at all. And then you do that and you spend loads of money and now you've sacked him. And this is a problem that West Ham, they find themselves in way too often. For a club that's worth so much money, that should have some seriously smart people at the head of it, I don't know how you can continue to make these same mistakes. What happened with Lopetegui is essentially the exact same thing that happened with Pellegrini. You hire a manager because he's, to be fair, Lopetegui did a decent job at Wolves, but Pellegrini had a good resume too. He won, the Premier League with Man City, but doesn't mean he's a good fit for your club. It's more than just CV. It's more than just achievement. It's about fit. Lopetegui was never going to be a good fit at West Ham. Stylistically, he's what the fans probably think they want. He's probably what they think they want in terms of him being someone that plays a high line, plays attacking football, but they just get exposed. Every week that they're playing football, they're losing. They don't lose every game, but they've lost a lot of games from the same mistakes. Playing a high line, you've got an old goalkeeper, you've got defenders that, in theory, should be able to do this, but you're losing all these games. They clearly can't. They clearly can't. And Lopetegui didn't really show that in a meaningful way he was willing to sort of adjust and make changes. Graham Potter seems more like the manager who is willing to make these changes. And Graham Potter said himself he's going to be in for a big challenge, but he's very excited for it, as he should be. As he should be, because he got sacked by Chelsea in April 23, which was what it was. For me, Graham Potter at Chelsea, of course, the results were amazing and they were in a bad position. But if you want to just blame Graham Potter for that, I think it's a hard I think it's a hard position for him to be in because Graham Potter was sacked. They brought in Lampard, didn't fix it. Brought in Pochettino, didn't fix it. And now they're playing better under Enzo Maresca, but they had 2 more managers after Graham Potter. To me, that kind of suggests Graham Potter wasn't the problem there. And if you're a manager like Graham Potter who gets given... He was on a big contract at Chelsea too. What was it? Something stupid like a 5, 6 year deal at Chelsea. If you get given a 5, 6 year deal and you get sacked 7 months into it, I'm not really looking at the manager. I'm looking at the board. Like how much of a mess is that board in for them to be giving out those sorts of contracts and sacking a guy 7 months into it? You either didn't do your due diligence up front in terms of managing expectations, which I understand because Chelsea spent a lot of money. In football, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get guaranteed results off the bat. Right, Man City got taken over, I want to say, like 2009. They didn't win a title until 2012. You know, these things, they take time. And if you're only going to give a guy 6, 7 months, you're going to just be chasing your tail. You're just going to be chasing your tail. But yeah, Graham Potter, I think he's going to be... He would be a good fit from West Ham because West Ham, culturally, they'd like a British manager. Of course they would. You know, there's no doubt about that. West Ham are definitely still an old-school football club in that sense. They would definitely prefer a British manager. And then, for me, as a professional, you need to be looking at the experience these people have and perhaps trying to learn the lessons they learned from those, you know, failures or experiences. Now, Graham Potter even said himself, he's a better coach for the experience at Chelsea. Of course, you know. And there's a lot of this in football where, okay, let's say he manages at Chelsea, gets sacked. Now, we all know Graham Potter, he's probably never going to get that sort of big job again now. Because they're like, oh, he managed Chelsea and flopped. No, you have to look at it. He managed Chelsea. He's got that experience. It didn't work out, but what lessons did he learn? And is he better for it? You know, in theory, all of these moments for a manager should be learning lessons. And I think they probably are. But in terms of the media just spin it out of control and make it sound way worse than it is and make it sound like this guy is an awful manager. He has no right to be at any of these clubs. Graham Potter is a serious manager for me. He's a guy who's managed, where did he start? Ostersund's, I want to say Ostersund's, managed Swansea, managed Brighton. These are all small clubs where he done a good job and he exceeded expectations, particularly at Brighton. Now, I remember when he went into Brighton and they had sacked Chris Hughton, who had just kept them up. And I'm thinking, you're Brighton, you know, any manager that is able to keep you up, you know, that is a serious achievement because you're Brighton. But Brighton took the chance on Graham Potter and it seemed to have worked out. Well, not seemed to have worked out. It has worked out because Brighton to this day, the foundations that Potter laid, Brighton are still in the Premier League now. You know, they're not challenging for a title. They're not one of the biggest clubs. But for a club like that, just being in the Premier League is an achievement in and of itself. So yeah, Graham Potter, a manager who I really like. I think there's a lot of talent at West Ham. There's a lot of talent there. They've got, Kudus, Bowen, Somerville, Souček, Alvarez, the new striker they signed, Fulkrug. There's some talent there. There is some talent there. And no doubt I think Graham Potter, if he doesn't get a lot of money spent in January, because January is always notoriously hard to do business in the football industry. So maybe if you get some loans in, and then if they spend a bit of money in the summer, you know, hone that squad a bit more, West Ham could be right back where they were just a few years ago under Moyes very quickly, under Graham Potter, because he's that sort of manager in my opinion. In a couple of seasons under Potter, I wouldn't be surprised if we're seeing West Ham back in the top 10. And again, you're West Ham. You're not Tottenham, Arsenal, Chelsea, United, City. You're not going to be expected to be challenging for these top 4, top 5 spots. So if you're even in these conversations, he's doing a good job. You know, he's doing a good job. But yeah, Graham Potter, a really big appointment for West Ham. One that I'm surprised has taken as long as it has for him to get a job, because he's far too good to be out of work for this long. It was my pick for the England manager's job. Of course, they gave it to the German instead. But hey, that's the position we find ourselves in. And of course, in other news, we've got David Moyes returning to Everton. Huge news. After they sacked shouldnt, which it is what it is. He's not winning games. It's a results business at the end of the day. You need to be getting results. Shouldnt wasn't getting those results. Doesn't mean he's a bad manager. Perhaps maybe his time sort of passing him by, maybe in terms of football. The Everton team's not a great team. Also, this isn't like the Everton team of a few years ago where there'd been a lot of money pumped into the squad and they were just really underperforming. It's not really, that team's not really like that now. The team is a team that's very much stripped to its bare bones because they've had problems with the profit sustainability rule, the PSR, financial fair play and all that stuff, and going bankrupt. So they've had to sell a lot of their players, and a lot of the players they've sold, they didn't even get maximum value for them. So they're not in a great place. So Moyes coming back sort of as that firefighter role, he's more than capable of doing that. It really just depends on how the Everton fans and the players respond to Moyes coming back. I'm hoping it's a positive response because Moyes is a bona fide Everton legend. You know, what he achieved at Everton in terms of those higher Premier League finishes, finished 5th one season. I'm like, because Everton, in terms of the Premier League, they're not in terms of the history of the Premier League, which is 35 years old at this point, they're not a big club. They are, but they're not. You know, they're not an Arsenal, they're not a United, they're not a Chelsea. They're not a big club in terms of that Premier League history. But Moyes was able to, on a smaller budget, was able to get the most out of certain players and just extract value from these players that were cheap, perhaps overlooked, and even finished 5th one season. Got them into Europa League. It's a big achievement for these clubs. I think if you're a fan of these bigger clubs and you're just used to, even if you're not used to winning a championship, you're just used to being at the top in terms of a club historically like United, where you finishing 3rd is a bad season. Up until like these past few years where they've really been bad, and you know, if they finish 3rd, they'd be really happy with that. But yeah, Moyes coming back to Everton is a really big deal, and I'm happy, again, just like Graham Potter, really baffled as to why it's taken him so long to get a job. It's probably a mix of him wanting to take a break, because I imagine these jobs are very taxing on the mind, because your day is 24/7 thinking about football and results and tactics and game plan, transfers, contracts. These are all things you have to be mindful of. So I imagine if you're doing those jobs for a few years, you want to take a year out. You want to take 6 months off. You want to take 18 months off. You just need to let your mind recover from these sorts of jobs, which I completely get. I mean, I don't completely get. My job's nowhere near as intensive as theirs, but in terms of like that, I get it. I get it. So yeah, David Moyes back in work. Graham Potter back in work. Moyes isn't English. He's Scottish. Graham Potter's English. Should have got the England job. He didn't. Whatever. They're back in the Premier League. I'm happy to see it. And yeah, I think that's going to be it from me, guys. I've been Seth from the Lonely Stones podcast. This has been episode... Oh, what episode is this, actually? Let's have a look. What episode is this? This has been episode 6. This is episode 6 of Seth's solo side quest. So yeah, that's it from me, guys. Take care. Hope you enjoyed the video. I'm out.